Hi guys, sorry it's been so long, and I'm just going to apologize in advance for the length of this video response, particularly compared to the length of the video I'm critiquing. But as you may have already noticed, these kinds of young and perky pro-feminist videos tend to kind of dispense gallons of bullshit with a fire hose in under 5 minutes, in which case takes you hours to clean it all up. So that said, let's just dive right in to the bullshit.
As some of you may have heard, former Canadian radio personality and mouth-breathing egomaniacal creeplord Jian Ghomeshi will likely be avoiding his second sexual assault trial next month.
Yeah, he will. And he did.
Ghomeshi is signing a peace bond, which is basically a document that's like, yeah, I'm a goddamn monster, but how about this? I just won't go near you for a year.
It's actually not what a peace bond is. A peace bond is an agreement to not go near someone for a specified period of time, yes, but there's no admission of guilt, implicit or explicit, conveyed by signing one. Any given individual might sign a peace bond in order to avoid the egregious legal costs, publicity, and disruptions of a trial, and their willingness to sign such a document is not necessarily any reflection on their guilt or innocence. As a side note, if the Crown actually had a solid case against Ghomeshi on this second round, I don't think they would have accepted this deal, now would they? It might interest you to know that it's been revealed that Roberto Verri, who is believed to have been the Crown's star witness in this second trial and who claimed to have witnessed the incident in question while he was working for Q at the CBC, wasn't even employed by the CBC until more than 18 months after the alleged incident allegedly took place. So when the Crown brought the case, they thought they had a corroborating witness. Turns out they don't. They had someone who was willing to lie on the stand about witnessing an incident he couldn't possibly have witnessed. Isn't that interesting, Megan?
Oigo. And you know what, guys? I'm done being nice, I'm done being cute, and I'm done being sarcastic, so y'all better strap the in because I'm about to throw down.
Give me everything you got, tough girl.
First of all, let's talk about Judge Face McSlutshame for a second.
You mean Justice William Horkins? Is that who you mean?
Look, face, we were all expecting you to fail, because that's what the justice system does to victims of assault. It's your deal, I get that. But to go out of your way in your verdict to accuse these women of deception?
Ah, you mean when he drew attention to the fact that they persistently, willfully, and repeatedly perjured themselves regarding facts material to their complaints? You mean when they did that? You mean like when Lucy Decatur repeatedly claimed she avoided all contact with Ghomeshi after he allegedly assaulted her, but then solid evidence was presented that she aggressively pursued a romantic and sexual relationship with him for more than a year afterward? A campaign that included handwritten love letters signed, "I love your hands," and emailed declarations the day after the alleged assault that what had happened the night before made her want to fuck his brains out? You mean like when, in complete contradiction to her sworn testimony, documented conversations were unearthed wherein she danced clumsily around the M word? You know, marriage? Oh, and then there was that photo she sent him of herself in a bikini filleting a beer bottle. You mean like that kind of stuff? You mean like the other complainants similarly testifying, persistently when challenged, that they had also avoided all contact with him after the alleged assaults, only to be caught in remarkably similar lies as Decatur was? One having even gone on further dates with Ghomeshi and engaging in further sexual activity with him? After a sexual assault that she testified left her so traumatized she didn't want anything more to do with him ever again? You mean like that? Now here's the reason why I find your framing so annoying, Megan. Judge Horkins went out of his way in his verdict, which is available to read online, so you can go and fucking read it, because you obviously haven't. He went out of his way to stress that because the complainants gave false or erroneous testimony, that didn't necessarily mean the assaults they were alleging didn't take place. He literally said that a finding of not guilty is not the same as a finding of innocence. He also went out of his way to point out that just because the complainant's testimony was consistently inconsistent and reliably unreliable throughout the trial, even this doesn't mean they were lying. He drew a clear distinction between testimony that's false because of intentional deceit and testimony that's false due to inaccurate recall or innocent error, and he allowed that the latter might have been the case. And even though he did suggest that Decotere had, in his opinion, attempted to deceive both police and the court on several relevant matters with the intention of bolstering her complaint against Ghomeshi, he went on to stress that sometimes actual victims do stuff like that, and it's understandable, and that even this type of deceit couldn't really inform his decision to acquit. That's a lot of benefit of the doubt, Megan, given by a judge to 3 complaining witnesses whose sworn testimony completely disagreed with every single available piece of physical evidence. Now, if we're up to me, they'd all be back in a courtroom ASAP on charges of perjury, especially Decotere, given what else I've seen of her regarding this case, all of which points to her being a self-serving liar. But, the judge made an explicit point of emphasizing that the complainants might not have actually been lying under oath intentionally, and that even if they were lying under oath, it's somehow excusable because sometimes real victims do that kind of thing, even under oath. So, no perjury charges are pending. You'll be happy to know.
And hinting at the notion that they're making it all up is some really, really, really f***ed up shit.
Now, do you know what usually happens to people who are found to have intentionally lied under oath in order to unjustly harm another individual, Megan? Things like massive fines and prison time. And I don't think you realize the gravity of perjury and why it's considered a serious crime. When a person petitions the criminal justice system to take action on their behalf, they are asking the system, the government, the state, to kidnap that person, forcibly restrain them, and forcibly confine them. Those would all be felonies if an individual citizen committed them against another person. The reason those actions are not felonies when the state commits them is because we, the people, have legitimated the authority of the state to do this on behalf of other citizens when it's necessary and only when it's necessary. When the state gets it wrong and convicts an innocent person, they are committing kidnapping, illegal forcible restraint, and illegal forcible confinement. So we insist that they have to be pretty damn sure. Now, when a complainant lies under oath in order to bolster their case against a defendant, they are deceiving the state into potentially committing a series of violent crimes against a fellow citizen. They are turning the state into their accomplice. They are turning the criminal justice process into their own personal mafia. And while Judge Horkins implied that the complainants might have lied, he went on to make excuses for these women, as if they're toddlers unable to understand the gravity of a sworn oath to tell the truth, or the degree of injustice that can be perpetrated by courts of law when they are misled, intentionally or otherwise.
Do me a favor, remember the lunch you ate on April 23rd, 2002? Yeah, name 3 ingredients. Oh, you don't remember? I guess you didn't eat lunch that day.
The last time I had food poisoning was over 20 years ago. I was 7 months pregnant with my first child, so it would have been in May 1994. And I can guarantee you, I remember exactly what I'd eaten just before I spent almost a full day on my knees in front of the toilet. And the basmati rice, which has a rather coarse texture, felt so awful coming back up that I've never eaten basmati rice since. I gave the rest of the bag of rice to a friend, and I swore off of it forever. And you know what else I can tell you? You won't find any evidence, ever, at all, that I have gone out of my way to eat basmati rice at any given opportunity. You won't find a paper trail of restaurant receipts wherein I can be shown to have ordered basmati rice as a favored side dish. You won't find basmati rice cookbooks on my bookshelves that were purchased after the incident, and you certainly won't find Facebook pages devoted to basmati rice wherein I gush about how much I love it in the comments and beg other people for recipes. Because, unlike what seems to be the case with Decotere, the incident was so traumatic for me, I actually avoided what traumatized me from that point on, rather than aggressively seeking out more of it. Now, ask me what I had for lunch last Wednesday. Probably couldn't tell you.
Also, while we're chatting here, why do you think someone would make up a rape accusation?
I don't know, to socially destroy a man, to get a leg up in a custody battle or a divorce settlement, to get out of paying cab fare, because he hooked up with her earlier in the week and he forgot her name when they ran into each other again, to deflect her parents' attention from her failing grades, to trick a guy into liking her, to get out of writing her bar exams, to conceal an infidelity or explain a pregnancy or STI so her parents wouldn't punish her for being out past curfew because she got swept up in anti-rape activism and thought a rape hoax would get attention for the cause. All of these have formed the motivations of documented false accusers. Megan, here's a suggestion. If you want to know why a woman would make up a false rape accusation, why don't you actually do some research on it? There are plenty of documented cases of false rape accusations out there in newspapers. In most cases, the accuser's motivation has either been explicitly determined by the system, or it can be implied or inferred based on the surrounding circumstances. Of course, in some cases, there's no reason other than that the accuser is mentally ill.
For money or retribution, because an infinitesimal number of assault cases actually make it into a courtroom, let alone reach a verdict that falls in favor of the victim.
Infinitesimal, huh? You know, between 60 and 70% of sexual assault cases in Canada go unreported to police. This is comparable to most other index crimes, including other assaults. The majority of unreported cases go unreported for the same reason you probably wouldn't schlep yourself down to the police station for 3 hours to report that your garden hose went missing from your yard. The reason being that these are trivial incidents. The victim can't be bothered to report because the incident wasn't a big enough deal to justify an hour or 3 filling out a police statement, let alone taking it to trial. So, we can toss about half of all sexual assaults detected in the surveys that you feminists love to do into the victim just wasn't that annoyed by it pile. Now, you can choose to be upset about that, and as a feminist, I'm sure you will be. You know, the whole idea that a woman could be sexually assaulted and not think it's that big a deal. For myself, I actually find it encouraging that so many incidents of sexual assault that make up this epidemic you guys are ginning up in the media, that so many of those fall under the umbrella of, oh, some dude grabbed my butt in a nightclub, I told him to go fuck himself and kept on dancing. Of the sexual assault cases that do end up in court, some 45% end up in conviction. Now, that's not bad. The conviction rate for murder is 56%. And it's really not bad considering such cases are based solely on the testimony of the complainant quite frequently. Often what little physical evidence there might be is physical evidence of a legal act, at least until you feminists manage to outlaw sex. Now, Megan, I'm going to explain something about the law to you, and it's going to sound all legal-easy, and hopefully it won't go over your head, and it'll probably make you mad, so take a deep breath. For most forms of crime, there are 2 elements required: the actus reus, or guilty act, and mens rea, guilty mind. So, let's just do an example. Let's say I'm driving in a school zone and I'm following the posted speed limit and I'm paying proper attention, and a little kid runs out from behind a parked car right in front of my vehicle, and I just can't stop in time and I run over them. Now, the actus reus, the wrongful act, is me running over a child. But I lack the required mens rea for it to be considered a crime. I had no intent to do it, nor was I negligent or in violation of the rules of the road when it happened. Without that mens rea, it's just an accident. It's not a crime. Now, sexual assault is a crime whose 2 necessary elements are based entirely on state of mind. The actus reus of rape is based on the victim's lack of consent, which is a state of mind. The mens rea of rape is based on the defendant's awareness of the victim's lack of consent, which is also a state of mind. Now, regarding sexual assault in Canada, mens rea is also based on what's called a reasonable person standard, which means that even if the accused was somehow unaware that the victim was not consenting, if a reasonable person in his position would have been aware of that, he can still be found guilty. Now, here's where it gets difficult with rape versus vehicular manslaughter. With vehicular manslaughter, the actus reus is already firmly established. It's never legal to run over a kid. It's never in accordance with the law to run over a child with your car. There's a dead kid lying in the road. There's blood and other evidence on my car. It's understood right then and there that something wrongful has happened, and all that remains to be determined is mens rea. Was this horrible thing that happened an accident or a crime? Now with rape, because both elements of the crime are based on state of mind alone, and the only thing separating the legal act of sex from the illegal act of rape is two people's states of mind, the actus reus is not always firmly established at the outset. More than this, the physical evidence is not always helpful in establishing actus reus. It's always wrongful conduct to run over a child with your car, Megan. It is not always wrongful conduct to have sex with another human being. What this means is that unlike the blood and hair in the grill of my car, right, semen samples are not evidence of rape. They're evidence of sex, a legal act. DNA under the victim's fingernails might be there because she was resisting a rapist, or she was raking her nails down her lover's back to urge him to go deeper and harder. See what I mean? See why it's difficult? This is why sexual assaults that occur in dating, relationship, and acquaintance contexts are so difficult to prove, because frequently the only physical evidence is evidence that sex happened, and sex is not necessarily a wrongful act. When you're talking about a stranger with a weapon jumping out of the bushes on a jogging path and raping a female jogger at 4 o'clock in the morning, there's no need to establish actus reus. No sane person would believe that any woman in that situation would consent to sex. But thanks to feminism and the sexual revolution, women making complaints of rape increasingly find themselves doing so in the context of situations where it's not unreasonable to believe a woman would consent to sexual activity with a man, on a date, within a relationship, with a fuck buddy, at a party. Women consensually have sex in these contexts all the time, and it's perfectly legal. You're not even allowed to look down on them for it. So unlike the assumptions that can be made regarding the woman on the jogging path, women have sex with men in these more murky contexts all the time these days, and that complicates even establishing in a court of law that a crime, that a wrongful act was even committed. So in this context, you have to first establish through the state of mind of the victim that a wrongful act, wrongful conduct actually occurred, before then further establishing whether the accused is the person who did it and is also criminally culpable for that wrongful act, given his state of mind. It then becomes he said, she said, and at that point, the credibility and reliability of witness testimony is everything. Everything. It becomes the entire case, and when it's found to be neither credible nor reliable, the case falls apart, as it must.
For attention? Yeah, because there's nothing that a survivor loves more than having their name smeared across national media.
Wait, what?
Why do you think someone would make up a rape accusation? For attention? Yeah, because there's nothing that a survivor loves more than having their name smeared across national media.
Why do you think someone would make up a rape accusation? For attention? Yeah, because there's nothing that a survivor loves more than having their name smeared across national media.
I don't know if you realize this, Megan, but someone who makes up a rape accusation isn't a survivor. They don't feel any of the trauma or shame associated with having been violated because they weren't violated by someone. They're actually violating someone, and sometimes they're willing to do it for the attention that comes with it. People who make up false rape accusations for attention do it to capitalize on the public sympathy that actual rape victims deserve. They callously hijack the goodwill of kind-hearted people and undermine the credibility of actual victims by doing so. Now you might ask, who would intentionally make up a rape accusation? Well, who would intentionally leak a sex tape of themselves? Not me, not you, but Kim Kardashian would. So would Paris Hilton and a bunch of other freaking Hollywood D-list celebrities. Who would fake a hate crime? Not me, not you, but Charlie Rogers would, and did, and Meg Lanker-Simons would, and did. Charlie Rogers even went so far as to carve homophobic slurs and Christian symbols into her own body to make it more convincing. Who would stage a home invasion and a rape just to convince her husband to move to a better neighborhood? Not me, not you, but Lori Martinez did, going so far as to pee on herself, cut her lip with a pin, and have a friend in boxing gloves rough her up to make it more convincing to the police. I'm going to let you in on a little secret you might not be aware of, Megan. There are people out there who do all kinds of fucked up things for all kinds of fucked up reasons. And if it's easy enough to believe that there are men out there capable of holding a woman down and fucking her against her will, one would think that it might be just possible that there are women out there who are capable of doing fucked up things like that. And the people who do fucked up things like making false complaints of rape, they are not survivors of anything. There is no trauma or shame or fear from an actual rape to stop them. All there is the objective, whether it's to ruin someone, get money from them, get attention, solve a problem, whatever. And yet here you are asking, why would someone make up a false rape accusation? Well, I'm going to ask you, why would anyone rape another person? 'Cause they're fucked up! Why would a survivor want their name smeared across national media? That's what you're asking. As if someone who makes up a story about a rape is a survivor of rape. Unbelievable.
Alongside words like slut and I'm gonna kill this slut.
You ever wonder what kind of words a man falsely convicted of rape might get to hear? Not just on social media where people often comment that he should be castrated or ass raped every day in prison. What words does he hear from the prisoner's dock? Like, guilty? I sentence you to, 20 years in prison? How about the words he gets to hear from inside his prison cell? Where he's just a number until he's out, and then he's just a number to his parole officer, right? What do you think he gets to hear? What words do you think he hears from HR departments when he's repaid his debt to society and now he's looking to put back together the fucking shattered pieces of his life by, trying to get a job while on the sex offender registry? Can you imagine being innocent and having everyone believe you're a rapist? And that as a rapist you deserve to be beaten, castrated, raped, punished, shunned, socially and economically destroyed for the rest of your life? Imagine the mandatory counseling you'd have to take where you're forced to choke down all of that feminist Kool-Aid, right? And then vomit it back up, forcing yourself to choke out those words, spit them out, how you've changed your attitude towards sex and women. Can you imagine what it would be like to have to go through those motions, to have to say those things and hear them, right, about yourself if you were innocent? You think maybe parroting words you're required to repeat before they'll stamp your file with rehabilitated might be painful? Might make you feel ashamed? Might make you feel worthless? If you were, innocent. You ever think falsely accused men might sometimes get victim blamed? Like when those 5 minority young men falsely accused at Hofstra University, the ones who only avoided prison sentences of up to 25 years because of incontrovertible video evidence that the sex was consenting. When they were berated by the press and pundits and the public for asking for it even after they were exonerated, because they acted like dogs and didn't respect women. To have a talk show host say that even though the evidence showed it was all consensual and the woman was so into it, she was egging them on the whole time, right? The young men were still in the wrong, that they behaved like pigs rather than like gentlemen, that they kind of sort of got what they deserved because they didn't treat a woman who was caught on camera, just fucking begging to be rammed, right, with the proper respect that women deserve, and that they should learn a lesson from this. And the lesson is that they should respect women. Yeah. I'm sure respecting women like their accuser is just real high on their fucking priority list. I'm going to leave a link to that Steve Wilkos show episode in the low bar so you can watch it. And keep in mind, if that one guy hadn't abstained, or if he hadn't chosen to video the entire incident, these young men who'd done nothing but have sex with an enthusiastically, affirmatively consenting young woman would likely have gone to prison for decades. Because she stuck to her story right up until the police told her they had incontrovertible video evidence of the incident, that someone there had filmed the entire thing. Only then did she recant. So I don't think there's any reason to believe she wouldn't have stuck to it all the way to a guilty verdict. And by the way, since you expressed some curiosity earlier, her reason for making that accusation was she didn't want her boyfriend to know she'd cheated on him, and she didn't want her fellow students to think she was a slut for banging 4 guys in a public bathroom. And her punishment for trying to put 5 young men in prison for up to 25 years each, for no reason than to spare herself some embarrassment? Mandatory counseling.
Okay, prosecutor dum-dum, way to prep your clients.
Don't blame the prosecutor, Megan. The only expectation placed on these women was that they tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They all swore an oath to do just that, not just in court, but also in their sworn statements to Toronto police. And then they said a whole bunch of things that were demonstrably untrue, and left out a whole bunch of relevant details for which there was ample physical evidence. And oh, by the way, the complainants are not the prosecutor's clients. The head of state of the people of Canada is. The Queen, the Crown. Regina, R. versus Gian Gomeshi. The complainants are witnesses for the Crown. Moreover, it's not the prosecutor's job to investigate. It's the job of the police to investigate. And then they take their evidence and present it to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor decides whether to take the case forward based on that evidence. Witness preparation in a criminal trial is as follows. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Those complainants had one job, Megan. One job. And they fucked it up. They fucked it up from the moment they approached the police.
I can only imagine your trial prep must have gone something like, okay, I'm going to send you into the underworld to go mano a mano with the King of Darkness, Hades himself. Here's a marshmallow crown and a book of children's knock-knock jokes. Have fun!
So who's the devil here? Gomeshi? Judge Horkins? Marie Hennen? Or is it the legal process itself, which is designed in such a way that the state can't just grab people out of their homes and lock them away in little boxes for years at a time without a good reason?
How were you caught off guard so many times in this trial?
Because feminists like you have convinced Toronto Police Services to adopt listen and believe as their best practices when investigating sexual assault cases, Megan. I know, Megan. It looks like incompetence, and it is. But it's an engineered incompetence. Engineered by feminists. To appease feminist activists, Toronto police have adopted a policy of taking sexual assault complainants 100% at their word, avoiding any sensitive questions that might make them feel disbelieved or re-victimized, and closing investigations without any real effort to uncover potentially exculpatory evidence. Because that would make complainants feel disbelieved. So you feminists managed to get exactly what you wanted from Toronto Police Services, and it's blown up in your face. Why? Because regardless of what the police do or don't do, the criminal court system cannot adopt listen and believe as a cornerstone. Reasonable doubt and listen and believe are legally incompatible concepts. So, good job, feminists. You've managed to ensure that the conviction rate for sexual assault will plummet by placing unreasonable constraints on the people tasked with investigating sex crimes. Bravo. Oh wait, brava.
This is an assault case, not a long weekend in Margaritaville. Wake the up!
The only people who treated this case like a long weekend in Margaritaville are the people who've downed the feminist Kool-Aid, Megan. That is, Toronto Police Services, whose investigation, according to feminist best practices, was to take the complainant's statements, nod vigorously, express their unadulterated belief in every single word, rubber stamp it, and send it off to the Crown. Of course, once the verdict was in, feminists all over Canada started expressing a desire to turn the court portion of these cases into a long weekend in Margaritaville as well. Investigations? Pfft, who needs them? Burden of proof? Ha! Reasonable doubt? Why, that's just passé. It's the year that it is, people, whatever year that is now. This whole criminal justice system is really inconvenient. Can't we just remodel the entire thing so that when a woman makes a complaint, the guy just goes directly to prison? Now that would be justice.
To the defense, my only words to you are that I hope I never have to be within 100 feet of a person who, with pride, describes himself as Hannibal Lecter, unless of course that person is Anthony Hopkins.
Okay, number 1. Marie Henein never actually said that about herself. Former Attorney General Michael Bryant described her as seeming to channel Hannibal Lecter. Perhaps she took that as a compliment. I would if I were in her shoes. Number 2. I'm willing to bet that if you were falsely accused of, say, inappropriately touching some kid you were babysitting, and you had the money to hire her, you'd be in Marie Henein's office in a fucking heartbeat. And I doubt you'd be upset if she made one of the Crown's witnesses cry or look like a liar.
The man of the hour, Prince Scumlord. Way to get away with it.
Get away with what, Megan? You don't know that he did what he was accused of. You don't know that he didn't. The only people who know are the people involved. But what do you know about Lucy Decatur? Here's what I know about her. She's willing to conceal pertinent information from the police and the court while under oath. She's willing to say the opposite of the truth for whatever reason while under oath. She was willing to collude extensively with another complainant, documented in hundreds of chat logs regarding the details of their complaints, and then tell the court while under oath that she never discussed the case with any of the other complainants. That she was willing to tell the press that the incident with Ghomeshi didn't traumatize her at all, and then give demonstrably false testimony in court that she was so traumatized by the incident that she avoided any further contact with him. And I know that, in her own words, she wants to be to sexual assault survivors what David Beckham is to Armani underwear. That she took it upon herself to go fishing for other women with a possible grievance against Ghomeshi and convince them to accuse him in the press, and then, after that, file complaints with police. That's what I know about Lucy Decatur.
You're like OJ, except you didn't need to try on a single glove.
Well, yeah, Megan, because gloves are physical evidence. And remember, there was no physical evidence whatsoever in the Ghomeshi case. Well, I guess except for all that exculpatory physical evidence is what I meant to say. There were no bloody gloves, Megan. No Bruno Mali shoe prints, no blood in Gomeshi's car. In fact, there was no car because Ghomeshi didn't even own the car in question until 7 months after the assault he was accused of committing therein. There were no photos of injuries, no DNA swabs taken from under the victim's fingernails, no nothing. So, let's tally things up, shall we? On the side of the prosecution, there was the testimony of 3 women who gave consistently and demonstrably false, misleading, or inaccurate accounts of what had happened. On the side of the defense was a mountain of physical evidence that directly contradicted their testimony. Why, I just don't understand how that guy was acquitted.
Efficient. As a student in the media, I was warned by 3 separate people to stay away from you.
All you've proven here is that office gossip can get really nasty. I mean, come on, Megan. Be honest. You're a fat girl. You can't tell me you've never been the target of malicious gossip. I suppose every time some rumor was circulating about you in middle school, your classmate should have just listened and believed, right? And again, I have no idea whether Ghomeshi is a douchebag. I suspect he may be. Maybe he is. But being a garden variety douchebag is not a crime. And fuck's sake, he wasn't even charged with rape. From what I gather, he never actually had sexual intercourse with any of the complainants at any point. And it wasn't the complainants who were saying no either. Decatur, again, aggressively pursued a romantic and sexual relationship with him for more than a year after the alleged assault, and as far as I've been able to determine, he never put out for her. Isn't that interesting?
And my major wasn't even radio. I don't consider myself to be a vindictive person.
I know you don't. And I'm equally sure you don't consider yourself to be an ill-informed moron who thinks people should go to prison over malicious office gossip and sworn testimony that's been demonstrated to be false. And yet here you are, throwing a tantrum over the fact that a guy you heard malicious gossip about wasn't convicted based solely on testimony that was proven false.
But I truly hope that you fade into a life of seclusion and misery.
And I truly hope Ducoteur is charged with perjury because she lied, by word and by omission, on the witness stand repeatedly and persistently and under challenge after swearing a solemn oath to tell the truth, and she did it hoping to put somebody else in prison. And here's the thing, Megan. There's more solid evidence that Ducoteur willfully and knowingly committed perjury than that Ghomeshi committed those assaults. Now, you might want to live in a country where people can be put in prison based on nothing but the demonstrably false or erroneous testimony of witnesses. And if that's where you want to live, you ought to have a wonderful time in North Korea. I wish you all the best. But here in the free world, we don't allow our government to snatch people out of their homes, separate them from their families and their lives, and lock them up in little cages for years on end unless they can prove to all of us that these actions are justified. That is why the victim is not the plaintiff in a criminal case, Megan. The plaintiff is the people, or the people's representative, the Crown. That's why that's in place.
I do. And to all of you commenters who are going to scroll down there and be like, but that's how the justice system works, Megan. Just f*** off, okay?
You took media in school, huh?
I get it. Reasonable doubt is the thing you need in legal proceedings. Everyone f***ing knows that, and you don't need to be the salty dickhole that stands on a victim's shoulders to yell a fact that we already know!
Oh yeah, you really seem to have internalized that whole idea. Oh wait, no, you don't seem to have. If you did, you'd be calling the complainants complainants or alleged victims, not victims. And no one is standing on a victim's shoulders to say that presumption of innocence, burden of proof, and reasonable doubt are three key elements of the criminal justice system that keep us all free from oppression and that they need to stay as they are. It is feminists who are standing on victims' shoulders to say that those things just aren't that important and should probably go away.
The judicial process needs to exist and function to help people that need help.
No, it does not. That is not its purpose. The purpose of the criminal courts is to balance the need to punish those who are proven to have transgressed the law and the need to protect the innocent from wrongful conviction. The criminal courts are no one's personal grievance machine, nor do they exist to help victims. They are required to remain impartial and operate within and abide by the constraints of the law as written by a legislature chosen by the people and which governs solely through the consent of the people. When the complainants, in this case, chose to engage the process, they were not promised the outcome they desired. When Ghomeshi was engaged against his will by the process, he was not promised the outcome he desired.
Function being the operative word.
And if Toronto Police Service's sexual assault unit had not rendered themselves dysfunctional by taking the advice of feminists and entrenching it in their best practices, this case would never have seen the inside of a courtroom, Megan, and rightly so.
And people that need help being people like victims of assault.
Again, that's not what the criminal courts are there for. And again, and again, and again, you keep just forgetting to use the word alleged. Are you sure you studied media? Because I'm almost positive they'd be interested in teaching you how to stay on the proper side of a defamation suit.
Nobody is saying we need to throw out our legal process.
Actually, lots of people are saying we need to throw out the standard legal process in regard to sexual assault cases, and one of the reasons they cite is that inconveniences like burden of proof, due process, and reasonable doubt standard, they just don't serve victims. Oh my goodness. So it kind of is like that.
We're just saying it's broken as f***.
Really? A legal process that has already undergone 40 years or so of feminist reforms, specifically in cases of sexual assault, is broken as fuck? I don't know if you know this, Megan, but sexual assault trials are already completely different from other criminal trials, and every single reform that has been implemented over the last 40 years has been implemented in the direction of making the process easier on complainants and making convictions easier to secure. So literally, after 40 years of feminists fixing the system, it's still broken as fuck. Well then.
Duh! Jesus Christ! Thanks for listening, everyone. I'm gonna drive to the beach and scream at the lake for a few hours. See you next week. Bye!
And I'm going to sleep better at night knowing that our criminal justice process isn't being run by dumb fuck media students who can't even be bothered to inform themselves about the cases they expound on. I'm going to sleep better at night knowing that our criminal justice process isn't some low-class rent boy eager to help any woman who's prepared to tell a marginally believable story just so she can destroy a man's life. I'm going to sleep better at night knowing that the engineered incompetence of Toronto police services hasn't quite trickled up to the actual court system. Yet. And I'm going to sleep better at night knowing that you only have a tiny little YouTube channel instead of a position of power in which you are capable of changing anything at all. Have a nice day, Megan.
If you like this video, click subscribe and share it with a friend. I make a new video every single week. You can also find me on social media down below, and there's another video about Jian Ghomeshi in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen if you'd like to watch it right now. That guy. Goodbye.
What happened? On the side of the defense was the mountain of physical evidence that directly contradicted... Really? Fucking rickrolled by my own son. I just wanna tell you how I'm feeling. Wanna make you understand.